Hey, so as you can probably tell, migrations have been on my mind recently, and today is no different. But instead of Airflow, we're going to be looking at migrating from Prefect to Orchestra. Now, for anyone that's not used Prefect before, this is what it looks like. Yes, that's Prefect, not Dexter, just to be clear. And Prefect has been around a fair amount of time now, and it means quite a lot of people are still using it. But when it comes to looking at migrations, people are still very hesitant to even try or take them on because historically they've taken so much time and effort for a data team. But we're going to look at how you can quickly migrate a few pipelines from Prefect over to Orchestra, run them, evaluate them, and actually test that they do the same thing as what the Prefect pipelines were originally doing. So let's crack on. Now, so taking a quick look around my Prefect instance, you can see that we have 4 flows and they've all had a successful run. They've all actually been connected and work within Prefect, so these aren't just made up. And these are just sat in a small folder that we can then use to start converting into pipelines. So jumping into the tool, I'm just going to upload our 4 files. There we go. And then it's just a case of entering my Claude API key and clicking convert. Jumping back into our conversions, we can see that they are now done. And if we have a look at one, we can actually see, even just visually, this fairly maps over from Python to YAML pretty easily. And what we're going to do next is just chuck in our Orchestra API key and just start matching up the connections. So if you want to set any kind of credentials manually, not the actual credentials, but the connection IDs, then we can do that here. But we could also just leave it to the defaults and let the agent figure it out. And that's pretty much what I'm going to do. So I'm going to set my Snowflake project location, and then we're going to publish these to Orchestra. And here we go. We have our 4 pipelines published in Orchestra and looking fairly reasonable, I would say. They look like they did in Prefect. So I'm just going to kick these off and run them and see how they get on just running for the first time and kind of how well the agent did at translating the concepts over. Nice. So as you can see, actually 4 out of the 4, 3 of them ran perfectly fine the first time, which is great. The data quality one failed, but if we jump in and look at that, we'll actually see that that failed on a data quality test failing, which is perfectly fine because that means this pipeline doing actually what we want it to do. So great. We've managed to get all of our pipelines mapped over. They look pretty good, but what next? How do we really know that these pipelines are still doing what we want them to do? Well, enter my next skill. So Orchestra has a lot of capabilities for doing data reconciliation, such as data reconciliation tasks that you can use in pipelines to monitor incremental changes or full tables, using things like cursors or manual queries to compare fields and data points. And then you can kind of monitor both in a one-off case and an ongoing base, whether your pipelines over here match your pipelines over here, or your tables over here match your tables over here, which is exactly what we want in the case of a migration. So what we're going to do is open up Claude, and we're just going to prompt Claude to go and build us a data reconciliation pipeline for the data quality pipeline we just produced. Now, I've chosen the data quality one just to give Claude a kind of place to read what tables it's looking at and to like understand the assets it's trying to compare from. But realistically, I could have given it this information in a whole bunch of other ways. So what that skill is going to do is go away and investigate the underlying Orchestra assets of the original pipeline and probably ask me for the location of the ones to compare it to if it can't already figure it out. which in this case is just going to be the same data in a different Snowflake database, but that could be across databases in other systems, all sorts. And it's going to try and construct a pipeline using these kind of Orchestra tasks, where you can see there's a whole bunch of config options to help you do different kinds of data testing, and build me an entire pipeline that I can then just run for the next few days whilst my Prefect pipelines and Orchestra pipelines run in parallel, so that I can be confident that my migration is complete and I can actually make the switch over. So after a whole bunch of finagling and figuring things out, Claude has finished building my pipeline. And indeed, all it kind of asked me was which database is the other data in, which was perfectly fair. And if we take a quick look at what Claude has built, we can see quite a hefty looking pipeline full of meta engine based checks, where we're looking at things like row counts across the tables, column total checks, distinct counts, null counts, a fairly comprehensive data quality check of this table and all the different data types available in it. Obviously, there could be quicker ways in some systems to do row by row comparison, such as hashing or built-in functions. But in this case, the skill is meant to be fairly agnostic and kind of build it for any sort of data warehouse, whether that's SQL Server, Databricks, Snowflake, BigQuery, whatever you're running, which obviously don't always support these nice utilities. But we're just going to run this and see kind of how far it gets in terms of comparing the data, whether it actually works. And if so, I'd say that's pretty good. All right, so we've run this pipeline, and as you can see, there is a whole host of tasks that we've run to kind of compare our new data sets. And we've got both Snowflake queries running directly, we've got reconciliation tasks, and then we've got more Snowflake queries, more reconciliation tasks, and they're all passing. So if we were to actually go through and comb this pipeline just to make sure the tables in here are what we'd expect, which should be in the meta engine config, and there they are. These look like the tables we were kind of expecting, and they all pass. So we could let this pipeline run for the next few days whilst our other pipelines continue. And as long as it keeps passing, we're going to be more and more confident that our migration has gone completely fine. And that's kind of it, really. In just a few minutes, we've managed to migrate our data pipelines from Prefect to Orchestra. We've successfully ran those data pipelines with the correct credentials to connect to the source systems. We've also built and run a comparison pipeline to validate that our migration worked and is complete in an ongoing basis. So if we can do all of that in just a few minutes, why keep shying away from migrations or even just trying out new tools? With AI, you're now able to actually just spin up the tools you need to test them out and see how they fit your use cases without having to worry about week-long lift and shift projects. So yeah, go give it a go and stop shying away from the tools you actually need. Cheers.